Welcome to the final episode of the Freebie Friday podcast. Today we're going to talk about the big changes that include this podcast and the website, and why this is the last Freebie Friday episode, and then we'll get into the writing tip for this week. So stick around. We're going to talk about all of that. Alright, if you have been on the site or have subscribed to the newsletter, then you have heard rumors of the big changes that are coming up. And while I tell you that this is the last episode of the Freebie Friday podcast, that is true. It is not the last episode of this podcast, though. So, what's going on? Well, I have decided that the three elements of the main part of the website, which is this podcast, the blog on the website, and the newsletter, are all going to coincide with each other, and they're going to have a weekly theme. And as it stands right now, the order that everything is released in is not coherent. So I'm going to make everything more streamlined, and to do that I have to move things around. The first thing that I'm going to move around is the blog post, which currently is released on Tuesdays. I'm going to switch that to be released on Monday. Now, this will kick off the week. It will address the theme for that week, and it will go into a lot of the detail and in-depth parts that the podcast and the newsletter just cannot cover. So we're going to start that. Now, as far as the blog goes, that's the only change from Tuesday to Monday. The next big change is this podcast, which currently, because of Freebie Friday, it is released on Friday to end the week. But that's not going to happen anymore. Now, the podcast will be moved to Wednesdays, and that'll allow me to continue the theme from the blog post and get ready for the weekly wrap-up, but it'll also a lot more time that I can spend doing supplemental episodes that I can release sporadically throughout the week. Obviously, with a Wednesday podcast and random other day of the week episodes, having a name of Freebie Friday just isn't going to work. So this Monday, when the blog post comes out, the first thing that you will learn is the new name of this podcast. It'll also have new artwork, so that will change as well. If you go to the website extradraft.com to listen to the podcast, the address will change because it is currently now Freebie Friday. But I'll have everything up to redirect automatically, so once you go and you click on the link to the Freebie Friday to the podcast, then it'll automatically switch you over to the new address, which you can bookmark there or update your current bookmarks. The podcast will still talk about the writing tips. I'll give you tips and tricks and how to get the most out of the ebook that's being released and the video courses that are coming up. We'll also go over some of the things in the blog post from that week. We'll cover some of the homework and things to help you out to get those done and get them done efficiently following the 5-draft method. And then we're going to wrap everything up on Thursday with the newsletter. And the newsletter will cover everything else that happened during that week and then look forward to next week. And those are the big changes. Now, like I said, on the website the addresses will change. The newsletter will still go out. It'll also have a new name. Currently it's called the Extra Drafts Monday Mailbag. Being out on a Thursday, we're going to change that as well. But those are really the only changes that are going to affect you, is, if you listen to this on iTunes or Stitcher, Libsyn, whatever it is that you listen to the podcast on, the RSS feeds I'm going to leave the same. So you don't have to update anything. They'll still come to you. They'll still download. You'll just notice it'll be a new name and it will have new artwork. So now that the business is out of the way, let's go to this week's little lesson here. And this one is just a quick one. It's a little tip, a little reminder, something to keep in the back of your head. Don't be afraid to tell your story. And what I mean by that is, you may have heard that every story has already been told. And that's true. There rarely, very, very rarely, is there anything ever released that is truly unique and fresh and new. It does happen, but for the most part, when you see something new, you can attribute it to something else from the past. The story has been told in one way or another by someone else before you. And I've seen a lot of authors, a lot of writers or aspiring authors get to this realization point. They come along, they're working on their story, they have this great idea, and they're writing it out, or they're outlining it, or they've even started one of the drafts. And then they come across something, either online or in the library or whatever, where it reminds them of their story, and they just get disheveled, they get disappointed, and they quit. And they're like, well, this isn't a fresh idea. It's not unique, it's not original, it's already been done, so I'm just going to give up on it. But don't be afraid to tell your story, because look, even though every story has already been told, it hasn't been told by you. So we look at different examples. Let's look at Romeo and Juliet, one of the most famous tragic love stories of all time, written by Shakespeare in 1942 or something. I'm kidding. But how many times has that been retold? If you think about it, West Side Story, that's Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet itself has been redone so many times. And then you have offshoots. You have cartoons. Anybody remember Romeo and Juliet? Just because something has been done before doesn't mean it's been done your way. And that's what I want you to focus on. Tell your story. And as long as you aren't copying someone else's work exactly, I'm talking like plagiarism and taking everything but changing a character's name or something, you can tell a similar story, and you're telling it your way. It's going to have your spin on it, and that is what makes it unique. If you're worried about losing a reader because your story isn't fresh and new, don't be. We have genres in writing for a reason. People like romance novels. People like horror novels. They like true crime. Whatever it is that they like. And if you go through and you read enough of the same genre over and over, you're going to get the same story. People don't care. People like these stories. That's why they are drawn to that genre or that author. And they will read them anyway. They like the different spin that the different authors can put on it. Even if it's something that's recognizable as another story, it's still different enough that they're going to enjoy it. So don't be afraid of that. You're not going to lose readers because your story has been told before. If you are a creative person, you have this itch or this burn, this desire for that particular project. Something comes into your mind, you get this idea, and it just sticks with you. And it's going to stay there until this project is completed. So if you give up on it and you try to put it away, it's going to end up being a regret. Which, to me, a regret is a feeling of not being able to finish something. So don't go ahead and finish it, even if you don't do anything with it. Put it out there and let whatever's going to happen, happen. But at least you got it done. Just don't give up on it. If it's already been told before, and it may have been, but as long as you have it your way, and it's your story, told in your unique manner, with your unique voice, it's going to be different enough to stand out, and it's going to make a difference. So tell your story, and don't give up on it. And for next week, we will see you on Wednesday. And until then, have fun and write words.